Order. This is an open meeting of the Broadcasting Board of Governors held in compliance with the requirements of the Government and Sunshine Act. We hold at least one meeting a year in the headquarters of each of our BBG-sponsored international broadcasting entities, and so this one is being held at Radio Free Asia in Washington, D.C. on M Street, being streamed live over the internet at bbg.gov. And where's Libby Lou? There's Libby Lou. Everybody, a round of applause for Libby Lou and her great hospitality. We had the ability to meet with the RFA staff, which was great, but even more importantly, is there a particular reason we had the potluck?
We do it every year at the board meeting.
All right. As the entity that's become most near and dear to our hearts is because you have a potluck where everybody from the various regions of the entity, from the Uyghurs to the Tibetans, do their national dish and bring them in and cook them for us. We appreciate you doing that, but even more so, we appreciated meeting the dedicated staff. So thank you very much. Anybody else want to add to that or say something? We met today with Quentin Wiktorizik, who's the NSC Senior Director for Global Engagement and Strategic Communications. I think that we have a strong coordination with the National Security Council now on what we're doing. We got a good briefing and we put things together. You know, in the challenges of the government shutdown, I think, I hate to keep singling people out, but Mary Jane and Jeff Trimble and Dick Lobo and, well, obviously everybody else, the notion that you kept everything going at a time when never in the past 5 or 6 years has the need for international broadcasting been stronger, i.e. with turmoil across the Middle East and the rest of the world. And yet there was always the constant threat of government shutdowns. So I know all of you worked on weekends, each weekend, putting out new plans for the shutdown. Dan Austin, your people were great as well. And we sure appreciate that. We've been spending a lot of time reviewing the structure and organization of international broadcasting, especially through the work of both the Governance Committee under Dennis Mulhop, but also Anders Winbush and Michael Meehan have been looking at the strategic things of it. I think we're going to have some I think we're going to try very hard in the next few months to come up with a strategic plan that will show that we've taken very seriously the need to rationalize a lot of what we've done. That said, I'd like to ask the board if under tab 4 you'll look at the minutes from the March 11th meeting, which was held at the Office of Cuba Broadcasting. If there are any comments on the minutes? Is there
I
any?
move they be approved.
Governor Ash moves that they be approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Michael Linton, you took time from a personal trip or a personal and business trip for your other hats that you wear, and you visited the headquarters in Prague. Governor, do you want to, Linton, do you want to give us a report on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I spent a couple of hours, an hour sort of going through the facility, a significant amount of time spent with the part of the RFE that's dealing with the Afghan broadcast, and then with the senior staff there. It's as you know, because you've all seen it, an incredibly impressive organization. We had a long conversation with the senior staff as to, because they're now, as you know, in the midst of a search for a new head of RFE. We talked a little bit about the commitment on the part of the governors to make certain that the RFE continues to provide quality broadcasting and quality journalism, that was a #1 priority for all of us, that we understood the importance of what RFE meant as a name out there, and that we understood the impact of that. I will say that the overall morale and spirits of the place were very, very high. There didn't seem to be, as far as I could see, a tremendous amount of concern or nervousness about who the new person running the RFE might be, because they seemed to feel that the search was in good hands, and that search committee would come to a good decision. I felt actually normally when I go into an organization which doesn't have a clear leader and a search is out, there's normally a significant degree of nervousness. That didn't seem to be the case at all. So we spent about an hour with the senior staff and myself sort of talking about various issues they were going through. One of the most significant, which I highlighted in an email to Dennis and to Walter, was that the precipitous drop in the value of the dollar is making it very, very difficult for them to retain employees, given the fact that everybody is paid in dollars. And apparently the State Department has a way of dealing with this fluctuation through a cushion in their budget, and they were asking whether there wasn't a way to deal with it with the RFE's budget, and I said I would report that back to the BBG.
Thank you very much, Michael. And that last issue in terms of the currency fluctuation issues was indeed reported back, and Mary Jean and others discussed it. It is very complicated, and the State Department doesn't have a line item at the moment that has funding, right, that can actually do all these. Anyway, there's no consistent policy across the U.S. government.
There is no consistent policy.
It would be nice, and we would certainly welcome a consistent policy across the U.S. government in which everybody from state, defense, commerce, U.S. trade reps to people working for the broadcasting board, there could be one consistent policy, but we'll see if that turns out. That was an incredibly favorable and good report, so I will turn to Michael Marchetti to rebut it and say things aren't that good,
no
especially since Michael is now the acting RFERL president.
No, I would like to say very much to Governor Linton that the time you spent with the staff energized them, especially what you said about your dealings in the private sector with the problems you're confronted with in your business, and that now they feel better that the board and you have this very strong commitment somehow to assist RFERL, not only in this fiscal year, but in the future. And I've already spoken with Governor Mulhop and Governor Meehan, and we have spoke just this afternoon, and Mary Jean and Jeff Trimble. So we're all united on that. So thank you, sir, for what you did during that your stay in Prague. Thank you.
And
It was my pleasure.
I will also just do a shout out to Dennis. They may want to say something, Governor Mulhop, but that we're doing a very methodical, very professional, very careful search for RFE. Both open and is, with all sorts of candidates involved. And I want to commend you on the openness and goodness of that search, which should, I hope, bear fruit within the next weeks or so.
Yes, they will. Thank you very much.
Thanks. The Strategy and Budget Committee has continued its extremely intensive BBG strategic review since the March meeting. In March and April, regional review activities were conducted for the South Asia, the Balkans, Caucasus, Belarus, Moldova, Ukraine, Russia, and Central Asia. The committee held a formal meeting on April 13th, 2011. Governor Winbush, would you provide a report?
Yeah, I will. Let me provide just a little bit of context and background. This is, of course, part of the larger strategic review that we began almost immediately upon taking office. It is due to run for most of the year. This is an effort by the board to look in great detail at the dynamics and shape of our future broadcast landscapes, the kinds of requirements that we may have to meet at those on those landscapes, and the kinds of instruments and facilities that we currently have that will allow us to meet those, or will in fact not allow us to meet the objectives that we set for those landscapes. We have been moving forward on a very rapid and rigorous schedule of review, assisted most ably by Bruce Sherman and his research staff, who put together so much unbelievable material that it's almost incomprehensible to me that the BBG's got this much stuff, and that they can somehow get it into a form that makes it digestible. So many thanks, Bruce, and your group, for all of your hard work. Since our last meeting in Miami, the committee has focused on Eurasia, South Asia, Central Asia, as the chairman noted. This is, of course, a huge geographic area that has enormous interests for U.S. foreign policy, for global security policy. We looked in particular during the last set of reviews on the programming activities of the Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and at the distribution capabilities of the IBB in the 6 specific geographic regions of South Asia, which includes Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Pakistan, the Balkans, the Caucasus, Belarus, Moldova, and Ukraine, Russia, which includes Tatarstan and Bashkortostan in the North Caucasus, and Central Asia. Each of our sessions consisted of a 2-hour joint roundtable between RFERL and VOA senior management, followed by a 2-hour expert panel discussion. I have heard many very favorable things about especially about the expert panel discussions, which have the joint effect of both informing the board about the conditions of the broadcast environment that we are looking at and how to think about them in creative ways, and helping our broadcasters as well understand in new ways and the range of new dynamics and questions that affect the environments that they are broadcasting into every day. We have encouraged RFE, RL, and VOA to bring specific initiatives and suggestions for improvement to the table. And on April 13th, the committee was briefed by the IBB, VOA, and RFE, RL senior management on the media environment, current BBG programming, and proposed initiatives as they were discussed in advanced sessions. In addition, the review allowed the committee members and entity senior management to clarify opportunities for substantial, and I mean substantial, cooperation and coordination between the Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. And in particular, they pointed out opportunities for the sharing of stringer networks, for common platforms and protocols for content sharing and management, for sharing and the rationalization of distribution networks, and for optimizing the mix of languages used in programming in selected regions. The board staff produced marvelous briefing books and strategic maps, our strategic placemats, as we like to think of them. Each map shows on one page the connection between U.S. foreign policy objectives and national interests in a particular region, and on the programming activities and initiatives of the BBG broadcasters, as well as suggested future implementation strategies. The Strategy and Budget Committee, co-chaired by my good friend and colleague Michael Meehan, recommends the adoption by the plenary board of the committee report from its April 13th, 2011 meeting regarding Eurasia, South Asia, and Central Asia regional reviews. The next step in the regional review process will be reviews of both China and East Asia and the Middle East in May. The China and East Asia regional review is tentatively scheduled for the week of May 2 through 6, although there may be some adjustments in that to accommodate the schedule of the Radio Free Asia's president. And the Middle East review is tentatively scheduled for the week of May 16th through May 20th. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report, and I urge the adoption by the plenary board of the committee report of April 13th, 2011.
Michael, do you have anything to add?
I second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, then it passes. The Governance Committee report. The Governance Committee met on April 13th and covered issues dealing with the future organization of the BBG. Governor Mulhaupt, I think, has both a report to the board and a set of slightly revised whatchamacallit?
Action items? Or delegations of authority.
Motions to make and to be adopted. Mr. Mulhaupt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At its recent meeting on April 13th, the committee discussed the future structure and management of the agency. The committee had a productive discussion of the complicated issues associated with rationalizing and optimizing U.S. international broadcasting. These complex issues require continued discussion and consideration by the Governance Committee. In today's report, I would like to revisit several of the issues from the committee's February 22nd report that have not yet been acted on. Recommendations from the February 22nd report include Governance Committee leadership. Governor Ashe has expressed a desire to resign as committee co-chair. The committee recommends that the plenary board recognize Dennis Mulhop as chair of the Governance Committee and confirm Governor Ashe's continued membership. Grantee fundraising. The committee recommends that BBG staff prepare proposed guidelines for permissible forms of grantee fundraising for further consideration. The guidelines should incorporate advice provided by the General Counsel. The advice concludes that BBG grantees are not prohibited from fundraising per se, although grantees are prohibited from using any federal funds to finance their fundraising efforts. However, fundraising might be directed to specific purposes such as travel, training, or special events. Harmonization of grantee bylaws. The committee recommends to each grantee that its chief legal officer should seek to harmonize the grantee's respective bylaws in order to eliminate any substantive differences across the organizations. Agency gift authority. The committee recommends that BBG staff propose a draft policy on acceptance of conditional and unconditional gifts by the BBG for further consideration. But the policy should incorporate advice provided by the General Counsel. The advice states that BBG has authority to accept conditional and unconditional gifts, although it cautions that conditional gifts should not be accepted if the conditions are contrary to BBG's mission or authority. The policy should include a protocol for the acceptance of substantial gifts, including a case-by-case review by an appropriate committee. Mr. Chairman, I move that the plenary board adopt the February 22nd, 2011 Governance Committee report, noting that the board has already adopted many of these recommendations at the March board meeting.
I second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Dennis.
Moving on to some further action items relating to the management of the agency and delegations of authority. The Governance Committee has noted and reported to the board a number of management challenges that the Broadcasting Board of Governors needs to address. Primary among them is the authority for day-to-day management of U.S. international broadcasting and the reporting structure of the elements of U.S. and that the fact that the reporting structure of the elements of U.S. international broadcasting are unclear. Since last July, the board has made significant efforts to define and clarify the management structure of U.S. international broadcasting. And while these efforts have arguably improved USIB, the Governance Committee believes that the management of the agency would be improved by having a full-time executive charged with implementing the board's strategic vision and managing USIB on a day-to-day basis. At its meeting on March 11th, the board clarified the current reporting relationships between the BBG Executive Director, IBB Director, VOA Director, and OCB Director, and directed staff to propose draft delegations of authority for these four positions. The BBG staff has presented to the Governance Committee a package of delegations of authority that, in the judgment of the committee, have satisfied the board's directive. These delegations have been made available to the governors. Based on our further conversations this morning, the committee believes that, while helpful, these delegations of authority need to be enhanced further. Therefore, the Governance Committee proposes the following steps to improve the day-to-day management of the agency. First, the board should merge the staffs of the International Broadcasting Bureau and the Broadcasting Board of Governors. Second, the director of the International Broadcasting Bureau should be the head of the merged staff, and all of the functions and offices within the Broadcasting Board of Governors staff and the International Broadcasting Bureau staff should report to the IBB director. The IBB director is directed to report back to the board on a recommended staffing structure to implement this decision. Third, the board should adopt a delegation of authority to clarify and enhance the role, functions, and authority of the IBB director that is consistent with these decisions. A draft delegation of authority for this purpose has been prepared based upon the combined delegations that have been prepared for and submitted to the Governance Committee, and you will find them before you. It is important to note that this delegation gives the director of the International Broadcasting Bureau the authority to identify, evaluate, and resolve strategic trade-offs and conflicts among the broadcasting entities consistent with the broad strategic guidelines established by the board and subject to the board's continuing oversight. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of the revised delegation of authority to the Director of the International Broadcasting Bureau.
Second.
Yes, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just want to add that just a little context on this is that we as a board are in the middle of a year-long strategic review, both strategy and budget-wise, and we're taking a good hard look at the overall management from the board's perspective, the nature of the 8 members of the, and through this process, all of these issues are on the table, and I completely agree with the Governance Committee's recommendation that we have this as an interim solution that puts us on a path to look at this in a broader, holistic way. So I just wanted to.
All right, that's very helpful.
Very helpful to actually put it in that context. Further contextualizations? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay.
Okay, one more item, and then I'm finished. The board should
Take
also.
your time.
The board should also adopt the delegations of authority to the Director of Voice of America and the Office of Cuban Broadcasting, which were submitted to the Governance Committee by staff in order to implement the board's March 2011 decisions. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of the delegation of authority to the Director of the Voice of America and Office of Cuban Broadcasting.
Second the motion.
Governor Ash seconds the motion. Any comments or contextualizations? Any thoughts? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good job, Governor.
Well, I think it's all of us that did that.
Well, no, I think you did a good job, and actually, I think it is important to put it in the context because, you know, for all of us, this means that we will focus very hard on our larger strategic plan. Dick Lobo will be running some, you know, when there are issues on a daily basis, you know, all the entity heads, everybody else can go through him, but obviously, we're the governing board still, so you can always come to us. Now I need to look at my cheat sheet again. Governor Ash has a resolution for the consolidation of BBG offices bureaus.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution, which is a follow-up to the comments that were made at the last board meeting in Miami, was drafted in close consultation with Dick Lobo to simply ask the IBB Directorate to look at the issue. It does not mandate consolidation, but to look at the whole question, the effort being in terms of cost savings and whether or not we can operate more efficiently. And just as we are looking in areas that may require additional expenditures, we should also look at areas where savings might conceivably be made, but consistent with the mission of this organization. And I move the adoption of the resolution.
Do I hear a second? Second, I'll second it. And I would like to actually play the role of Michael Meehan here, which is, this is in the context of a very important, larger strategic issue. I think Andre Mendez marches through it a little bit today, which is that whatever we can share, wherever we can make savings, whatever facilities, whether they be servers to bureaus to whatever, in the future we will be looking at ways to save money. All in, any discussion, please?
Yeah, I'm with many looking for cost-saving measures and think that we're 9 months into a cost-saving measure review, which includes this. So, but I don't understand why we need a study of it. I thought we were in the middle of doing this already in our current process.
Just to second that, is this duplicative of the process that's already underway?
I didn't hear you, Susan.
Just to second that, is this duplicative of the process that's already underway?
It's supporting the process that Dick Lobo, I think, started a month ago on this particular issue, maybe it was 2 months ago.
Governor Ash called me and asked me to look into the possibility of merging office space primarily in markets or regions around the world. We might have 2 distinct offices or bureaus where we could maybe bring the people together and work together in one operation.
And do you feel, I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Well, I know that having sat through a lot of these strategy and budget meetings over the last 9 months, that the 5 networks have put on the table a lot of things, and it varies from place to place, and office space is certainly one of the cost-saving measures. But it varies depending upon where we are. I mean, we've got a Latin America issue, we've got great facilities in Miami. I mean, there's a whole, but this is all part of this larger effort that we're almost through with. So I'm not sure what we're not covering that's not being covered, and how this would address it.
Further comments?
Well, just be responsive. It says, I think there'll be some cities where it makes sense to consolidate. There'll be others, case by case, where it does not make sense. And it simply asks that it look at this. I think it's important to have board approval and by adoption of this to show that this is an aspect of cost savings that we think ought to be looked at. It's not a departure from policies that we have, and it supports what the IBB Directorate currently has underway. It doesn't elevate one above another, at least that's not my motive.
So just to clarify, this is being looked at by the Strategy and Budget Committee, correct? I mean, this would be one of many issues that are looked at by the Strategy and Budget Committee.
That's correct.
And it is, to clarify with both Dick and Strategy and Budget, can it be implied in this that this is in the context of that Strategy and Budget review? Or did you imply
No, that
that
would
this is
be my
separate?
hope that it would all work together.
Okay, do we even want to make a little amendment that this should be conducted in context of the Strategy and Budget review?
That would be helpful.
I
It would be.
accept that as a friendly amendment.
Well, so just to be clear, the IBB Directorate has just had his authorities expanded to increase in management across the board 5 seconds ago. We have 3 more months to finish the overall massive strategy efforts. I would hate to ask the staff to spend any time or money to do something that we're in the process of doing already. That's where my concern comes
So
from.
this does give a year.
Yeah, and I think that the friendly amendment that Susan, and I'll count Susan saying I'm in favor of that as a second to the friendly amendment that's been made by Michael and seconded, that it be done in the context of the strategic review, that it will not detract from that larger strategic review, and it will be done so that the timing doesn't affect the timing of the larger strategic review. It's a friendly amendment. Since Victor supports it, I'm not sure of my Robert's Rules of Order, but I think it's virtually adopted then, unless there's any objection, that the resolution is so amended. I would like,
On the resolution as amended.
yeah, I would like to have a vote on the resolution as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Very well done, everybody. Wow, I had to invoke Robert's Rules of Order. It's been a long time since high school student council. IBB Director's Report. Mr. Lobo, Director Lobo, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to make a proposal that RFA be changed from Radio Free Asia to Radio Food Asia. After the potluck meal we had today, it was just outstanding.
It was outstanding, Libby. Thank you, and everybody else.
Mr. Chairman, I have some good news and some bad news to report. First of all, some happy news. We've been informed by the Congress that we're about to receive $10 million in fiscal year 11 budget to use for internet circumvention activities. I want to assure everyone that we will be using that money wisely, and it will be spent within 18 months.
I think it's a good job, and we should really give a shout out to Ken Berman, who is the best expert in and outside of government on internet circumvention technology. And this was really a recognition of that by the Congress of the United States.
Thank you very much. Also, sorry to report, as I've been telling you over the last few months, there is still periodic strong jamming of our satellite transmission signals into Iran, and that is unabated. And we're also reporting now that we have strong satellite jamming of Al-Hura into Libya. And we're playing a cat and mouse game with the jammers switching from one satellite to another. So we're on top of that as best we can be.
And you're still receiving cooperation with the Department of Defense?
We are. In fact, we've been working closely with DOD on the use of their Commando Solo aircraft, which is flying around Libya. They're transmitting our SAW signal, and it's been going effectively well over the last couple of weeks, and now that's under NATO's command, so we're continuing to get signals into Libya. We've also redirected our Djibouti medium wave transmitter toward Yemen in order to get a better signal for Radio Sawa's Gulf Stream into that country. So that started just recently. And some good news on the part of VOA. They've just notched another record month in March with more than 19 million visits to its main news website compared to 7 million last March.
Wow, wait, that bears repeating?
Yeah, 19 million versus 7 million. And Dan can tell you about our success in Russia with the website.
Mr. Austin?
Yes, we had visits into our Russian website in March, I think of 1.3 million visits. We've been growing at a rate of 50% every 6 months. In Russia, again, I think it's some of the steps we've taken to improve the quality of the product. Some of the technological infrastructure improvements that we've been able to make are combining to aid that. So we feel like we're getting through. We're getting the right people, the right technology, and it's beginning to pay dividends.
You know, Andre Menendez gave us a report, on the strategic thing, and it showed the growing importance of the internet. I would say that if we had decided 20 years ago, what could we possibly invent that would help the mission of this agency, you would say something like that. That's a distributed, web-based network. And when we talk about the jamming of what's happening in Libya, obviously there can be firewalls that shut down the internet, that shut down shortwave, that shut down anything. Sure. But as we look at our strategic review, we have to be ahead of the curve, and I think we will try to be. One footnote to that, Mr. Chairman, in Russia, our web audience is now larger than our previous shortwave audience. I think that really should be noted because we are platform agnostic. We just want to do what works. Right. And sometimes people think by shifting things to the internet, it means we're giving up on something, and I'd love all this to get out.
And one last note, Mr. Chairman, RFERL reported to us they also had a record month in March with more than 16 million visits to its websites. They're doing a really terrific job there as well. And to follow what you said, I want to thank everybody and all the staffs, OBB, IBB, BBG, IBB, OCB, all of them were involved in planning for the proposed shutdown, and we had a terrific plan that was very well crafted that would have ensured BBG's broadcast would have continued in the event of a shutdown. We're happy that that wasn't pulled into effect.
Any questions for the VOA director?
Keep the plans handy. I don't think we've heard the last of the shutdown.
Well, I think are we out of it for this year? Didn't Congress just vote
October 1.
Oh, October 1.
Next year.
It's the next
Oh, okay. Well, as Victor Ash said, don't let those plans get dusty. The VOA director's report, especially Dan will update the board on the rollout of Citizen Global, for which we thank many people, but I think Susan took the lead in that. A tangible demonstration of our commitment to use social media to engage with BBG audiences overseas. Dana Perino also was one of the people who helped lead this. Both of them have a deep understanding of social media, and so Governors McHugh and Perino for their support and work on this project. I'd love both of you all, if I could, ask both of you to comment, and maybe the OA director too, since my notes say that.
Yeah, I just wanted to tee it up and then I'll hand it off to Dana. But we saw earlier a presentation about how hard it is to start something new, to get something new off the ground, and I really want to commend the VOA staff that's here and the staff that isn't here for helping get this exciting project off the ground. And hopefully you'll all be as impressed as I am with it. But it's an exciting opportunity, like I said, to really have stories told by women in the Congo and for the world to see and view and hopefully take action at a certain point. We are platform agnostic, as our chairman has said, but I hope we can continue to explore all sorts of new media, new technology to advance our mission. So thank you, and Dina?
I think I would just add that it was a fairly cost-effective way to try something new that I think will have a bigger impact. And then what we'll be looking to do is that if it does work, as we think it will, to see if we can replicate it in other places.
And Governor Perino, even though we've seen it and love it, perhaps I can impose upon you to describe it briefly for those who haven't seen it?
We can actually
I think that's
have a
what staff is
demonstration.
going to do.
All right. Can I impose upon the staff?
Please.
Please, yes.
Can I impose upon the staff to show us live on the internet the Citizen Global?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Gwen Dillard, who's the head of our Africa division, has been leading the charge, and with her is Stephen Ferry. This is a very aggressive use of social media, crowdsourcing in the pursuit of our journalistic mission. We greatly appreciate the board's support and direction on this, and the two governors have been absolutely wonderful in helping that. So Gwen, over to you, and Stephen.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Austin, Mr. Chairman. I want to return Susan's commendations. You have been a guardian angel to us and very effective on this, and we deeply appreciate it. Stephen and I are going to take 5 minutes of your time. I'm going to tell you about the story itself, the journalistic aspects of it. Stephen is going to walk you through our website, explain how it works, how we will measure success, and who we're trying to reach with it. And then we're going to show you a 20-second film clip, tape clip. This project is an outgrowth of Africa's strategy of reaching audiences on new platforms and in new ways. What we are doing is going to be used across the board. It's going to be used on this platform, it's going to be used on our broadcast platforms, it's going to be used on our mobile platforms. We've been aware for some time that the chaos in Eastern Congo has led to an epidemic of rape. Last fall, we read about the mass rape of over 300 women in a single village called Luvungi in Eastern Congo, roughly in the space of 24 hours. And in most of these cases, we're talking about not a rape, but 20, 30 rapes of the same person repeatedly, primarily of women, also some men, a great many children. There is an epidemic of rape as a weapon of war in Eastern Congo. So we decided to do a web special, and we began using the assets that we have in Eastern Congo. We have 8 stringers. We send them into these remote villages. They talk to people, and they get their stories, and they bring their stories back to us. And basically what we're creating is an oral history, archiving the stories of people whose stories otherwise would never reach the outside world. Some months after that, Citizen Global came into our lives, and we understood that we could reach a much wider audience. We could pull people in, we could widen the conversation, we could use crowdsourcing, we could use a cloud-based platform. We could bring people in and have them contribute their own content and their own stories and upload their own video. And at that point, what had been a VOA journalism project became a joint project with Citizen Global. Stephen's now going to walk you through the website and explain how it works, and then we're going to show you a 20-second clip that was brought back to us from Eastern Congo. It's a clip of a woman who is 75 years old and who was raped multiple times.
It started Friday, right before New Year. At night, around 1 a.m., we heard knocking on the door. Open the door, open the door. By the 4th time, the door was kicked in. They busted in. I asked them, why are you breaking into my house at this time? What do you want? They told me to shut up and held me by my legs. Open your legs. And I said, why are you doing this to me? I am an old woman. Why should I open my legs? Open. They held me.
Good afternoon, Governors. As Gwen mentioned, you were just listening to the account of a 75-year-old woman who was raped earlier this year in the Eastern Congo. The VOA is using this platform that you see on the screen right now. It's a cloud-based platform, social networking platform, a crowdsourcing platform that will help tell this woman's story and other victims like her. As a storytelling organization, the VOA is uniquely equipped to tell this particular story of Congo, of war, women, and of rape. As we begin this, there's actually 3 things that kind of stand out of the many opportunities that lay before us. The first one being is that the VOA can really help through this project end the isolation of victims by documenting the details of this tragedy on a uniquely interactive platform. In addition, the VOA is poised to assemble a different way of gathering content. We can aggregate and assemble content from a variety of different sources, from NGOs, citizen journalists, individual contributors, and of course our own correspondents who are operating in Eastern Congo. And lastly, the VOA has the opportunity to distribute this story not only using our traditional radio and TV assets and networks, but also making it available on the BBG networks and also potentially third-party networks. So as we walk through this, and we'll walk through the general interface in a second, keep in mind that the content that's generated by this project will be multiplied many times over from the audience that is actually going to go to this site. We have plans to distribute this, again, on multiple networks that will hopefully reach millions of people, not thousands of people. Excuse me, not thousands of people. So let me kind of walk you through this. If I can find the cursor here. Here it is. Congo Story, War, Women, and Rape. You see right at the top, right over on the right-hand side, we have our links out to our social networking sites, Facebook and Twitter. They're going to play a critical role in this project along with the crowdsourcing platform. We have this main editorial window. This is the video that we were just watching. Several times a month, this video is going to change, and we're going to update it with new and fresh content. To the right of it is this Speak Out window. This is where everyone from an average user to someone who's thoroughly knowledgeable about what's happening in the Congo can come and show their interest in the project, can show their solidarity, can show their support. And we're going to have various ways that people can do that, either by signaling that through Facebook that you're a participant or contributing a video to our media library. On the left, we have these general categories. These are, the one on the left is our expert category, where people and experts who know about this, about what's happening in Eastern Congo, along with NGOs, their media will be placed. In the middle, most importantly, is the victim stories. You can go to this area right now and listen to women and men and talk about how their communities and their lives have been changed by the atrocities in the Eastern Congo. And on the right, we really get to kind of the story arc here. This is, after all, this is a story, and it does, in a sense, I wouldn't say conclude, but at some point we have to talk about what happens to folks who have this tragedy happen to them. We have to talk about rehabilitation. We have to talk about the search for justice. So these are sort of the three sort of tent poles that we're going to be focusing on in the project. Just moving forward, as we proceed with the project, we're going to be capturing critical user data that will help shape and inform how we mature the product and how we grow our audience. We're going to be using the standard sort of VOA suite of how many visitors have come to the site, how much time they've spent on the site, even where they've come from, they visit the site. In addition to that, since this is a kind of a unique platform, crowdsourcing platform, we're working with to develop the ability to track the number of accounts, what media is uploaded, what media is shared, and what's the outcome of shared media and co-created media. So we'll have all of that data as our disposal over the next several months, over the next year, to refine how we're actually presenting and organizing and displaying this content. Before we wrap, Gwen and I did want to extend a note of thanks to Governor McHugh, who has been fabulous, essential, wonderful in helping to bring in some really great NGO partners who've already signed on to this. The Enough Project, Evenzers Vide, the Eastern Congo Initiative. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Governor Perino, Governor McHugh, that's pretty awesome. Thank you.
This is really, I mean, it's really a unique role that only VOA can play. I mean, these stories are not being heard anywhere. I heard you address that question.
Has mainstream media just ignored this?
They haven't ignored it. They've covered it, but not extensively by any means. And these are important stories to be told and to be heard. And this is something that VOA, and I'm proud that VOA is doing it, can do effectively.
And I know that we don't broadcast into the United States, but people could go to this if they chose, right?
Could indeed.
Sure, on the internet. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
But the other thing we're trying to do is bring in, visible people. Hopefully we'll get Dikembe potentially involved.
I've even been told you can
even-
give the URL, so why don't you do that?
It's
voacongostory.com.
We're in soft launch now, but we will start heavily promoting once we get some of the bugs worked out.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add my appreciation to what Governors McHugh and Perino have done in VOA. I asked the question because frankly, I wasn't aware of what happened. Obviously, it's a horrific, dreadful story, having spent 5 years in a country where a disproportionate share of the Holocaust was implemented. To see this type of thing occur, this is a story that has to get out. We owe it to our fellow citizens, to humanity, to just do the right thing, and we're doing it. And I think, for all the time we spend on this, this makes you feel a lot better to know that you're really doing something to educate people, and I hope there's some way to get around the barrier where Americans can know about it too.
I think they
Americans
should
would be truly
go to this
shocked.
website. Yeah.
And I thought I generally read the paper fairly carefully, but I just wasn't aware of this. I knew issues like Rwanda and Sudan and Darfur are going on, but I wasn't aware of this.
And
in
we're
the
talking
Congo.
about, this isn't a small amount of victims. We're talking about millions of people who are suffering.
There's a very large number of people who are not aware of this. We're also producing television promos, and the motto of those promos are, "Something terrible is happening to women in Congo. Help us tell the story." And
Well,
that
and-
sums up what we're doing.
I think this is something members on the Hill of both parties, conservative, liberal, whatever, would be genuinely interested in and would applaud us, VOA in particular, for doing this. I mean, my guess is a lot of members on the Hill just are not familiar with this specific tragedy.
And once again, I'm sorry, Michael?
I just wanted to add that the internal process to get this up, it was something that was new to the staff, and I appreciate all the hard work that people went through. And coming from a private sector digital media company, I know that we can move pretty quickly on these things, but to get the government trained to move this fast is on something this powerful means once we figured it out once, maybe we can shorten up the time for the next one that we're coming on, because I really think that
That's really good,
the
yeah.
VOA needs to continue to lead on these big, important issues that are undercovered, that aren't told well, that VOA and all of the networks can use this as the model template to do this in other places on other important issues.
That's a great point, and it's also a template for partnering with another private sector group like Citizen Global, but I hope we'll have a lot of these interactive engagement sites. And once again, we talked a moment ago about the stories that we don't, do. This is a type of story that'd be good for us to be able to proactively get out there, not just on the Congo, but on the interactive type sites that Voice of America is now building. So I'd love to see some stories about that. We've probably strained our relations with Libby Liu by continuing to praise her, but at the risk of one more time turning the meeting over to her and thanking her for being host, and perhaps update us a bit in the Tibetan elections, which are quite interesting.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us here. We are so pleased to host the group here today. I just wanted to take a minute or two, literally, to tell you about our coverage of the Tibetan elections, which just took place. RFA did a week-long series of 10 debates and town halls, including 31 candidates for the Prime Minister and Parliament for the Tibetan exile government. We started with a 3-hour live program simulcast in 3 places, Dharamsala, the southern provinces, and here in Washington, D.C., where thousands of people participated in asking questions and having interaction with their candidates. We thought this was extremely interesting because 55% of Tibetan exiles are registered voters, and it's extraordinary that they are growing a participatory democracy for a government without land. So I have a one minute clip to show you just some shots of our 1-week coverage of this really exciting event for Tibetans. We have no television, so keep that in mind.
In India, we were organizing a series of debates for the candidates of the exiled prime minister, and also we had a series of debates for the candidates for the members of parliament. And we organized these debates at 2 places, one in North India, Dharamsala, which is the seat of His Holiness Dalai Lama, where we have the exiled government, and then we organized in South India, where I went. So that is the center of the Tibetan population, where we have about 5 different settlements.
RFA
RFA is fully responsible for organizing all these events. We had planning done almost a year back. We thought that it's very important for the candidates to interact with the people who actually vote them. And it was the RFA who facilitated that interaction between the candidates and the debate voters. So that's exactly what we planned to do and what we did it. When they really went for election, most people seem to be knowing that, they have the candidate and they know what kind of candidate they are going to vote. So I think in a big way, I think RF played a big role in making the candidates known to the people who are going to vote them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you very much, Libby. And Brian, there's Brian.
Okay, I just, before we switch off
Sure, of
RFA, I
course.
just wanted to, in the open session, congratulate the RFA staff on the OIG report that we saw earlier today. I had known that zero formal recommendations was something that was uncommon, but somebody later told me that it's almost impossible to get. So I want to commend the staff on the progress you made from the previous one to this one and all the work that went behind making those improvements, and keep up the good work.
Further comments, please, for Libby, or questions? Did you feed the Office of Inspector General?
They did not get a potluck.
I was wondering how you pulled off this amazing feat.
Just hard work, sir.
Thank you so very much. Well, speaking of hard work, covering the Middle East has been amazing hard work. And Brian, I think I speak for all of us to say that it's been astonishingly gratifying to watch how well Middle East Broadcasting, Al Hurra, and others have done.
Well, thank you very much. And we thought we'd give you a quick visual summary of our work over the last 3 months as we've covered the Arab Democratic Movement. We're very proud of the work our staff has done over that period of time, sometimes at the risk of their own safety and security. Quick look at this.
It was the powerful sound of liberation that awakened possibility. Possibility that spread across a region, taking the seeds of a movement and growing it into a Middle East revolution. As passions ignite and protests grow, Al Hurra is there to capture it all, proving to be what the domestic press and state TV are not, a trusted source of news for the region. Al Hurra has delivered live, first-hand accounts from the streets of Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, Bahrain, Jordan, and Syria. Broadcasting important reaction from the various governments, giving voice to the opposition, and reporting the all-important perspective from the United States. It's the type of free reporting that only Al Hurra can offer.
Libya sits directly between Tunisia and Egypt, two nations that inspired the world when their people rose up to take control of their own destiny.
The difference is clear, and viewers have responded via email and Facebook with contributions to Al Hurra newscasts and reaction to the coverage. And when Al Hurra was targeted, the satellite signal blocked, the correspondence threatened, Al Hurra's coverage never stopped. Because at Al Hurra, it is not just a broadcast, it's a mission, a promise to bring accurate and objective news and information to the viewers and users across the region.
But as I've discussed with our chair, Enders, the hard work is now going to begin, because covering the actual breaking news is one thing, but responding with programming that is useful and facilitating to the democratic movement is going to be a new challenge for us. And it's part of the strategic review, but also our own internal analysis is to decide what do we need to do now? How do we change our programming to help and contribute to the movement?
How well has it been going in terms of your viewership and?
Well, the whole process is so slow in terms of doing the research. The only results we have to date are Egypt, which showed quite a jump up, and we're right in the middle. They've done Lebanon and Jordan, and they're starting Egypt and Morocco now. So in the next few months, we'll have a better idea.
Questions about Al-Hurra, please?
Yeah, but there can be very little doubt that Al-Hurra has all of a sudden matured and come into its own, and it's a wonderful thing for some of us. What a crisis will do, and I want to particularly point out how this particular story, or this set of stories, this sequence of stories, resonates across our entire broadcast region. And I want to personally and on behalf of the board thank Brian and the entire staff for just selflessly making their material available to all the other networks so that this story could go not just through MBN, but through VOA, through Radio Free Asia, through RFERL, through all of them. I got the greatest satisfaction some weeks ago when I was in Miami at the Martise, and I just happened to talk to one of the editors, and I said, "Are you covering this story?" And they said, "This is such an exciting story for us." And I said, "Well, do you need anything?" And she said, "I need the sound. I need the sound of people in Tahrir Square." We picked up the phone, we called Brian, and they had the sound within an hour. So, Brian, thank you. That's the kind of, not just resource sharing, but that's the kind of participation, of cooperation that really just sets the model for us. Thanks.
I think it's going to go a long ways to helping inform this global news network that we've been talking about. Sometimes necessity is the best way of getting things done, as opposed to in a more abstract environment. When people get excited about making something available when they know it's going to get another million eyeballs on their product. So it's been a great experience in terms of sharing with our brothers and sisters.
Further comments on Al-Hurra and Middle East broadcasting in general? I will say that I got a nice chance to visit maybe a couple weeks ago and see one of the interactive shows in which I was astonished how well you're integrating television, blogging, new media, Skype, everything, because we had if I remember correctly, a blogger on from Benghazi.
Right, on Skype, yeah.
Yeah, on Skype, somebody on Skype from Benghazi. We had somebody, well, you can tell who they were, but it was a great show.
Yeah, we had somebody from Paris, we had somebody from Jerusalem, and I think someone from Cairo.
Yeah. No, I don't want to be embarrassed by the clip. But it was fun to be on it, and it was one of those things where I was invited as a guest, but I think I flummoxed the host because I kept asking questions to the other guests because I was so fascinated about what a blogger in Benghazi was thinking at that moment and why, in his right mind, he was on Skype. So it was just very exciting for me to see the way you're pulling together new media and old. Further comments or questions for the board? I will say that we work closely with the governors and the executive director and the IBB director to develop the agenda for each of these meetings, so we would love any input people have on the agenda. We'll be meeting next in June in Washington, of course. We'll actually be meeting with the Secretary of State as scheduled as a member of this board, and that we do want to structure it as a meeting so that we have public participation. Thank again, RFA, for hosting the board meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Great.